Right, welcome back to the Morning Show here on Rise News. I'm Rufai Oseni.
I am Adesua Omorwan.
And I'm Shaito Atigari. Good morning.
Well, in a country like Nigeria, emerging trends point to good governance and sustainable innovation as a panacea towards accelerated development in economic, political, and social sectors.
Right. That's why creative and sustainable innovation is a dynamic administration construct that embraces fast-changing political, socio-economic arrangements because it tries to transform political, economic, and social life of the citizenry within the framework of democracy.
Joining us now for a discussion on innovation and e-governance as a panacea for national development and block budget loopholes is Mr. Tomi Davies, a Nigerian-British investor and the creator of direct.uk.gov, the e-governance portal of the British government, as well as a consultant to a firm that implemented the biometric-based integrated payroll and personal system for the federal government of Nigeria. Welcome to the show, sir.
Exciting to be here.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your antecedents. You call it history now. It's been over 10 years. Eyepiece, it's blocked loopholes of over 100 billion or more. I mean, tell us the backstory around this. And
Well, the latest records I saw say 4.5 billion a year. Well, it started with a project that was funded by the World Bank under what was then the Bureau of Public Sector Reform. The minister in charge at that time was Nasiru El-Rufai, who sponsored the project. And we started with 6 ministries where we were told that there were 55,000 employees in those 6 ministries. System Spec, led by Tanya Barrow, then went around the country. We managed that, all 36 states, fingerprinting and taking the biometrics of all these employees. At the end of the exercise, we could only validate about 27,500 odd employees. So you can see the differential in the number of ghost workers that were in the system. To say the least, it was not a friendly result for the public servants that were affected.
12 years down the line, how does it make you feel that we're still talking about the menace of ghost workers and how it's fleecing the national treasury? I mean, President Muhammadu Buhari in 2016, barely a year after his election, granted an interview in the UK, and he did say as at then 23,000 ghost workers had been found in the system. He was more worried about the corporates returning the money and wondered how long this had existed and for how many people. But this is 2019. We're talking about recurrent budgets, that far doubles what we're spending on capital. And a lot of people, say it boils down to corruption. How does that make you feel?
Well, it doesn't just boil down to corruption. It boils down to institutionalized corruption. Okay, and there's, you need to understand what that means is no matter how fresh the politicians coming into the system are, there is a corrupting influence that ensures that the only way they succeed in their political career is to play with, those who bring in the brown envelopes or the Ghana must go bags late in the evening to ensure you do their bidding.
Let's talk about I also want to talk about some of the challenges that we face in bringing e-governance as a whole into our country. You are responsible for, direct.gov.uk. Some of the challenges that we face is definitely the willingness to reform and the lack of an ICT infrastructure. I think that's the biggest problem here, because even if we implement it, then how do we have our the public go on these websites and communicate with the government? How do you think we can change that one problem of the infrastructure of ICT? I think it should be a basic human right for every Nigerian to have access to Wi-Fi, but we're still struggling with that.
Well, I think there's one step before that. Now we need to recognize, and that's education. So unfortunately, Nigeria has more children out of school than any other country on the planet. And that's the start point. Is first of all, we need literacy, digital literacy, okay? We, more importantly, need citizenship literacy. We don't have citizens in Nigeria yet. There isn't anybody, well, maybe some would argue the soldiers, that is actually prepared to sacrifice on behalf of getting the country better. We were taught civics, okay? The greater good. So you do certain things because, guess what? everybody's going to be better off. I think we've lost that. So we've got to go back and start with the education system and get the infrastructure to be the people. Once the people are right, in my experience, they tend to sort the environment out.
Let's talk about this environment, because this environment is bleeding. We've got a massive unemployment number. Even more stark is the underemployment numbers. A lot of people don't talk enough about that. The so-called people that are employed are underemployed. A sizable portion, about 18% of the economy. 23% unemployment rate. Entrepreneurship has been targeted as the way forward, as what would be the silver bullet. I mean, we talk about the likes of Apples and other top companies. We want to have the likes of Steve Jobs out of this country. You've been doing some work as regards that. Innovation hubs, the way to go. I mean, what's the narrative around this?
Well, again, I don't want to be the bearer of gloom or seem very, very gloomy. I think there's a misconception in the narrative that has happened. And there's a fundamental definition I hope I leave you with. And that is there is a big difference between SMEs and startups. Startups, by their nature, are built for growth to solve a massive problem. And when we say massive, we're talking of millions of people. That's why they tend to be tech-enabled in nature, because that's the only way you can reach millions of people in today's world is to go through tech. But that's startups built for growth. SMEs, that's really where we need to focus. Okay? Why? Because that's the backbone of any society anywhere in the world. I don't care whether it's the United States, United Kingdom, Ghana, or Gambia. And Nigeria is the same. The small scale businesses that employ 10 people, 15 people, 50 people, that's where the economy really is, and that's what we need to understand. What are those things? So how do we do food? How do we do shelter? How do we do clothing? How do we do communications? How do we do transport? How do we do health and education? If we center ourselves around those small businesses, then we may stand a fighting chance. What I see happening, though, is a lot of people are coming to our neck of the woods, which is tech-enabled entrepreneurship. We call it techpreneurs, who are focused on large-scale growth over a short period of time. And we're starting to see the examples. You've got Andela, that's now valued at $700 million. You know, we've got Flutterwave, valued at $150 million, Paystack, Paga, Hotels.ng. These are startups. These are companies that were built for growth to solve a specific problem that is relatively large in terms of the number of people it affects.
Well, you know, innovation-driven economy requires a lot of huge investment, research and development.
Correct.
Beyond the buzzword of innovation that everybody tries to use both in the public and private sector, how innovative are we?
Okay. There's classic innovation, all right, which centers around the Silicon Valley experience, where the United States military complex has invested in a lot of research and development. The internet came from there, DARPA, for example, and they continue to drive innovation. So if you take, for example, you talked about Apple earlier, okay, this is an iPhone. There are at least 10 patents in here that belong to the US government. So,
touchscreen and...
Exactly. So from that standpoint, we're way behind because we lack the government funding into research and development. And even if we had it, we lack the tertiary institutions that could conduct primary and secondary research and development. So we've become a utilitarian type economy when it comes to technology. So the use of technology as opposed to the development of technology is where we innovate. So, and that's why people like OPay, you know, are making inroads in Nigeria today. That's why Jumia could come along and do what it did alongside Konga and the others. So you start to understand that it's the use of technology, innovative use, I might add, that you know, we're in. But in terms of building new technologies, we've got IoT coming along, we've got artificial intelligence coming along, we've got holographic computing coming along. All of these are areas that others will lead us into, as opposed to us being the leaders.
Big data and the likes. Another very poignant question is, how can we get government to be part of this party? Because it's really important. I mean, I remember we've had conversations back and forth about this, and you kept on talking about the fact that government needs to get involved. But how can we get them involved? We've got a brand new Minister of Science and Tech, Dr. Patami, used to be in NITDA before, that understands. How can we get them to do even more in this sector?
Well, the first thing is, will they listen to Patami?
How do you mean, will they listen to Patami?
Well, he's got colleagues, all right? So let's just take health. We know one of the single biggest challenges we have is our people's health. We could solve health problems with remote medical management, for example, where you have experts in the cities and then you've got clinics distributed around, okay? We could do e-insurance, okay, where your mobile phone becomes your identifier for health insurance. How many uptakes? Okay, and it's one thing for NITDA and the Science Ministry to push. It's another thing for the Health Ministry or the Education Ministry or the Transportation Ministry to embrace the technology in an integrated way where it can be useful. For me, the biggest thing happening right now is you look at NIMSI, the National Identity Management Commission. If they were ever to get their act right, the potential for health insurance, for education, okay, even transportation is phenomenal.
But a lot of people say, with our BVN, we've been able to cut that margin, but we are not implementing. I mean, a lot of people are quick to relate it to India that had a system just like this called the Aadhaar system, identification. Billions of people have signed up. But even with the BVN figures or with the BVN data, there's no democratization of that, so we can't use it for development.
So ask you a question. Yeah. Who uses BVN?
Everybody.
You and I?
Anybody that has a bank account.
Yeah, that has what?
A bank account.
That's it. We're one of the most underbanked societies in the world. You're dependent on a banking system infrastructure. Let's get real.
Wow. That speaks to one of the biggest things that, over the past few weeks I've seen is a really major problem in Nigeria is the fact that the lack of like a database. We don't have anywhere where we can hold the authority figures accountable. There's nowhere for them to say, okay, this is what we're doing and this is our plan. This is how we plan on implementing it. Now, because this is a major issue and it's something that we've come to recognize, how do we take the use of innovation and technology and ICT to make that a possibility in our current government? Because we're in 2019, 59 years of being an independent country, and we still don't have these things in place. How do you suggest that we toe the line and implement a situation like this?
Well, this challenge you highlighted, I think is one that's well known. So if you look at Budget IT, they've been analyzing the Nigerian budget and its implications for quite a while, to the point where the young man who was leading it was actually invited to join, to be a special assistant to government. Unfortunately, they then decided he wouldn't have access to certain information. So he decided, you know what, if I can't have access, why am I bothering? Let me do my analysis on the outside. But in all seriousness, there was a gentleman that went into the statistics ministry that seems to have done a very, very credible job. Again, it's about just getting the right people into the right roles in government. That's my opinion. The structures are there. There's very little that we need that we don't have written down yet. What we don't have are the dynamic individuals who can take that mantle.
We'll go for a quick break, and I'll challenge our school of thought. We'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back. Still the morning show here on the Rise News. So we're having a very exciting conversation here with Tomi Davies, an angel investor, and was part of the IP's project in Nigeria. I wanted to take you on the point where you said, do we have structures in place as regards laws? Take, for instance, we don't still have a clear-cut digital policy for Nigeria's growth. And I'm going to give you the instance. Number one, that's why you heard recently that the MBC, as a part of its oversight, will be clamping down on all forms of hate speech, even social media, and media being perpetrated on the radio.
With an attached 5 million naira
With an attached 5 million naira fee. Secondly, the taxation, excessive taxation of the digital space, the communication tax that your very good friend Yeli Okeremi was here to speak about a couple of weeks ago, the excessive taxation of an industry that is burdened, the fact that nothing happened in the last, dispensation as regards telecoms because we couldn't push a little bit forward, no broadband policy, nothing. So it goes back to, do we really have anything on ground?
What I'm reading there is, do we have anything in government on ground?
Yes.
Because in the private sector, there's vibrancy.
But you need government to be able to, accelerate the private sector.
They've got a closing window of opportunity to do that because Nigeria has now signed the AFCFTA, and whether we like it or not, we're going to be pulled up, okay, to rise to the potential of the talent that we have, not necessarily the shackles of the government under which it exists. What do I mean by that? Well, I think, just listening, there's an over-reliance on government. They're very powerful, they're very strong, and they're very pervasive. I'm not underestimating nor undermining. But I believe we're in 2019, and government needs to be put in its place, which is that of a regulator, an umpire, not the player. We are over-expecting government to play on the playing field when they should be on the sidelines, guiding and monitoring and directing. And to me, that's where it starts from. Okay, is to wean ourselves off of the fact that...
But if a regulator doesn't regulate properly and the regulator's regulations become stifling?
Well, that's our challenge. I'll tell you a story and I'll leave the names out. A young man started a company here in Nigeria. He was in the financial industry. And as he started, they were told, oh, you're going to need X billion to get a license to operate this brand new, innovative way of doing things. That's the normal stiflation method, just like we do with licenses for the networks and so on and so forth. But like all problems, there's always a solution. That's what you do as an entrepreneur. You're designed to solve problems. Oh, you want 50 billion. Okay, what's this? What's that? Break it down. Okay, so if I did this, I'd be able to do that. And to cut the long story short, 50 billion became something like 11 billion by their own. And eventually he did get it, and the company has gone on to do amazing things and continues to do so today. The point I'm trying to make is we can either see the government as obstacles, okay, or we can see them as toll gates.
And I wonder how you would like us to see the government. But let me ask this, because we talk so much about diversifying the Nigerian economy. And every time we bring that up, we're all quick to jump on agriculture. And I wonder, why is ICT never on the table? Doesn't it have the potential to diversify the Nigerian economy? Rufai already mentioned, and I think that the telcos operators in Nigeria already said they have about 39 taxes already.
I know. I used to run a telco, and I can tell you, when it comes to taxation, you really need to have the deepest pockets possible. Okay, regardless of your revenue, some taxes will obtain,
So we turn to the telecommunication or the communication sector for taxation, but we do not think that they can bring so much to the table when it comes to diversifying the economy. Is that the situation here?
No, I think, first of all, if you look at the legislature, what's the digital literacy level? Let's start from there. Because you need to understand that it's not about ICT. ICT has become like electricity. Ignore it at your peril, okay? It's an enabling force, whether it's agriculture or education, whether it is health or transportation, okay? In today's world, you cannot get away without the involvement of some form of information technology support. That's why I talk about tech-enabled.
How do we fast track? Well, I mean, we know of these challenges. We've talked about so many of them already. How do we fast track this process to surmount these challenges?
Get the youth into politics. I'm serious. Get the youth into politics.
You need money to be able to run for positions.
No, see, this is the thing. You can change the paradigm. Who says you need money? What's the money for? The money is to raise awareness of positions and to get people's buy-in. That's what money in
Somebody once told me, if you want to win elections in this country, you need 4 people. You need the regulator, you need police, and you need the godfather, and you need the people that you bribe and buy their votes. So you need money for those 4 people.
Historically, if you wanted to do something, you wrote a letter, dear sir, it was handwritten, then it became typed. Today it's email, and now it's gone to chat. So why do you want to use antiquated methods for modern challenges?
Because antiquated methods still work in Nigeria.
50%, let me share some things. 50% of the population of this country are under 25. Last I checked, the voting age is 18. Between 18 and 25, please, can you tell me how many of them don't have a mobile phone? Okay? How many of them don't speak pidgin English? So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that what you're doing with BBC Hausa or BBC Pidgin, you can do on your mobile phones. Start to educate the people, start to raise their awareness. And that's what politics is all about, changing the lots of people. So if we've got a message of hope, then we need to share it through those mechanisms and get the people to react accordingly.
Let's talk about Hub's initiative. You're having something at Civic Center very soon for startups. I mean, so you can see the gleam in your eyes when we talked about that.
Well, I preside over the Africa Business Angel Network. And what we do at ABAN is we identify and educate local investors. We help them to come together into angel networks, like the Lagos Angel Network or the Abuja Angel Network. And finally, we engage with policymakers to help them see angel investing as a development asset class. But what we found in Lagos State, in Lagos Angel Network, as we tried to do that, was we couldn't get quality startups. Remember I talked about startups being high growth. So we're getting a lot of SMEs, but not startups. So nice and profitable, but not high growth. Our full flight is serving maybe 500, 1,000 people. A startup will serve millions. So we started looking and discovered that the hubs were actually in a situation where they're growing these startups, getting them ready, but they couldn't find investors to invest in the startups. So I'm saying, well, okay, let's bring the 2 of them together. So last year, our partner for the hubs is something called AfriLabs, which is the Pan-African group of hubs. I think they have nearly 200, maybe 150 hubs. They're members. So what we did was sign an MOU, and just 2 weeks ago, we announced that if you are an angel investor belonging to the Africa Business Angel Network, investing in a hub startup that is a member of AfriLabs, we will match your investment up to $50,000. Okay. It's a pilot, so we're going to do 2 per country to start with, and then we'll take it from there. Charity, they say, begins at home. So subsequent to Tanzania, met with a few of the Nigerian hub owners, and over the last 6 months, 75 of them have come together to form what is called the Innovation Support Network Nigeria, which is the hub association for Nigeria. The first annual gathering will be taking place at the Civic Center on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of this month.
Great. I was just going to ask you, apart from the problem or the challenge of positioning, because the startups were there, but the investors couldn't just find them, from what you said. Apart from that challenge, what was the other challenge from the perspective of the investors? What other challenges do they have in investing in startups in Nigeria?
Finding a startup that fits you. Because as an angel investor, okay, you're not a VC. So you're not aggregating people's money and investing. You're actually investing your own money and your own time and your own connections. So the chemistry must be there, and that's why we talk about mentor-driven capital. So what we're advising investors to do...
That's exactly the Alaba model.
God bless you. Thank you. Okay? What we're saying is mentor the startup before you invest.
Okay.
So you spend time understanding the business and providing guidance. So once the chemistry is there, then, the cash follows. And then that's the approach we're now using. So the Lagos Angel Network has announced Hub Mentor, where members of the Lagos Angel Network will act as mentors to startups that are in specific hubs in Lagos.
You've done a lot in this sector, and in the last about 30 seconds we have to the end of the show. You're part of a board of a company that means a lot to me, Sproxil. Sproxil is the company that when you buy a drug, you can scratch the surface and send a number to detect maybe it's fake or original drug. And that's to save a lot of people. I mean, what's your passion behind that in less than 20 seconds?
Well, it saves lives. And when Dr. Shifigogo came up with the idea and came to us as angel investors, we thought it was brilliant. We changed it a bit because he was trying to sell to government, but we believe the brand owners benefit more, and they've been the ones that have taken the company into the 5-country growth that it now has.
So it's out there on a couple of drugs. Yes. Once you buy it, you'll see a patch there.
What we sell are algorithmic numbers, which are then codified just like your airtime scratch cards. So it's the same principle. We used what people already knew, which is I can scratch, I can send. And what you do is it comes on the drug, you scratch it, you send off a free SMS, and it comes back telling you whether the drug is genuine or fake.
Very important that it is a free service, so everybody has a chance to partake. Thank you so much for coming on the show this morning.